Ooh, chat. Ooh. It's Halloween. How we doing? What's a kid? Stuff and things. Damn. What a crazy world we live in. Sure was. Well, the title of the stream don't lie. We shall, in this video, be reading through my old Creepypasta fanfic. I have alcoholic beverages ready. Specifically 1.5 alcoholic beverages. Spoopy time, it's scary in the sense of how fucking awful it is. I doubt that reading this fanfic will take us all night. I hope it doesn't. If I cringe too much, or I just get bored, we will just go play something. Tell me a cider. I'd rather not. I think cider might contribute to certain dental issues. That's the only correlation. That's a conversation for not on stream. And a succulent Chinese meal. And I hit the double bill today of starting both a new Skyrim character and a new Elden Ring character. Truly, I have been struggling with motivation to play games. Although I did go through and unlock the super polygonal Agent 47 from Hitman 3. That was fun. Just doing a bunch of silly little challenges on maps. Found out a lot of stuff that I didn't know about some maps. I am stalling, in case you were wondering. So, some important housekeeping before we get into it. I will not be telling you what site I published this on, my username, or even the original title of this fanfiction. I don't want anyone finding this. It is still live, but that's because I can't sign into my account to delete any of it. But I do have it copied to a Google Doc, which is what I'm going to be reading from. Second thing, I was like 14 when I wrote this, so not only is it not very good, it also has needlessly mature topics that I did not know enough to write about. So just blanket warning for violence and mentions of sexual assault. I'll probably skip over the latter parts because that just makes me uncomfy. But yeah, just this I was a little babby. Fucking, oh god, that was a decade ago I wrote this. So yeah, so if any of that is like potentially triggering to anyone, fine. I completely understand. Just not listening until we inevitably switch to something else because I get bored of it. But yeah, I actually still need to set it up. Oh, I haven't even manifested! Oh! There we go. But yeah, I don't... Still haven't actually fucking, there we go. That's, Alright, hang on, let me fix this. No, I'm opening all the wrong apps. Fuck, god damn it. Okay, drag that out so it's its own window. Hide it for now. I don't actually want you looking at it just yet. We're gonna find some spooky ambience. Background music, no copyright, please. Nintendo Halloween music. This'll do. This is actually, I do want to show you this. This is a very cute. Look how cute this is. Look how cute this little video is. Work to my Halloween costume soon? I know. It'll probably be back next year. Probably. Right. Let me... Oh, I accidentally fucking... I'm prepared. Right, open new window. Not full screen. History. Hope you didn't see any of my history. You did not. Goody goody goody. Right. Keep that there. I'll switch. Turn off that window capture. Add. Window capture. Yes. Filters. Probably should have done this before the stream, but fuck it. What do you think, like 100? 150 maybe? There we go. That'll do. Alright. That legible? We'll able to see this okay? This is gonna be clipping into the chat a little bit, but we're all grown ups here. We can all live with that. So, can you hear me okay? This question is more aimed at you, Sheepwife. If I can be heard okay over the music and all that jazz. No more fucking pussyfooting around, as I'm sure someone would say. Miss Elena, there's a man here to see you. Smiling slightly, she rose from her office chair, brushing her ebony hair from her face. I'm already cringing. My fucking alive. She fumbled her hand around her desk for the intercom, knocking a bottle of whiskey over as she did so. Thanks, Helen, she giggled drunkenly. I'll be down soon. The woman picked the chipped bottle from the ground running a slender finger over the damage done by the carpet before giggling at the thought of the carpet attacking her precious bottle. The intercom buzzed again. Miss Elena, this man says it's urgent that you... For fuck's sake, Helen. I said I was coming. Bottle, my precious. For context, obviously I was 14. I had never been drunk when I wrote this. I don't think I'd even had out... No, I had had alcohol, but I'd never been drunk. So I have no idea what drinking is like. When being drunk was like. As will soon become apparent. Where was I? I said I was coming. She yelled at her assistant, before throwing a fur coat onto her shoulders. She glanced at the display on her watch. 23:27. Not relevant. She stumbled drunkenly into the elevator, slapping the back of her palm into the ground floor button. She hummed loudly along to the tinny elevator music, tapping her foot badly along to the beat. Upon her arrival to the lobby, her PA pointed at a hooded man sitting on a chipped plastic seat. It might have been a trick of the light, but she saw him crack a smile from ear to ear. Literally. She grabbed his arm and led him to her car, throwing him the keys as she did so. He was caught aback slightly by the action, but continued walking at the same pace as the woman. He clicked the unlock button on the key and saw a set of lights flash up on a small hatchback. He smiled at this. He'd always liked hatchbacks. Irrelevant story. I did know a guy in high school who admitted to jerking off over cars. Not relevant, but that just made me think of that. One thing you'll notice a lot during this creation is I'm very clearly trying to set this in America. However, I'm an idiot. And I don't realize that Americans don't use words like hatchback and ground floor and stuff like that. Pixar's Cars must have been a porno for him. I never asked him. He was a twat. I remember he tried to slam a door once when he got kicked out of a classroom. But the doors had those things on them that stop them from like slamming. So he just like whipped his arm around and like let go of the door as if to like let it slam, and then it just slowly closed after him as he just stormed away from the classroom. How anticlimactic. Yeah, he was a prick. He also loved to claim that he was half Brazilian because his dad lived in Brazil. His dad wasn't Brazilian. His dad just lived in Brazil. Again, not relevant. She clambered into the passenger seat, peering at the face beneath the hood. As the man started the engine up, he turned away from her for a moment, but flicked his head back towards her. Hang on. He turned away from her for a moment, but flicked his head back toward... Why? A black and red bandana covered the majority of his face, along with large black aviator shades, but the small patches of skin showing were like clean slate, contrasted by jet black hair. She giggled at his strange appearance before rolling over and closing her eyes slightly. "That's right, Jane," he growled, plunging a sharp knife into her throat. "Go to sleep." He wiped the blood away from his knife with his bandana as her eyes rolled towards him, her final gaze being upon his scarred smile, reaching from ear to ear. Slowly, she smiled and fell asleep. And that's chapter not 1. Ho ho! Tricked ya! That was, I guess, a prologue, even though it very much is chapter 1. So, more backstory time. Aren't you lucky? For context, just so we all know what page we're on. This is Jeff the Killer. I don't know who this little What the fuck is this? Fucking people are still talking about Jeff the Killer in 2020? Good lord. Anyway, this is Jeff the Killer. As you can see, he's every teenager's crush or aspiration. Why the fuck is there a Jeff the Killer morph suit? I'm getting very distracted. The story of Jeff the Killer is that he's a boy named Jeff. And he gets, like, set on fire or something. And he's basically the Joker. Let's just put it that way. He's the Joker if the Joker was an emo. He's the Joker before Jared Leto Joker. If that makes sense. I was a big fan of Creepypasta back when I was a teenager. Jeff the Killer was one of my favorites. The other that I liked enough to write a fanfic about is Jane the Killer. Jane the Killer is like Jeff. Kind of. The backstory behind her is that she was killed by Jeff the Killer, and they have kind of a weird relationship. Look, it doesn't make sense. It's stories written by fucking 14-year-olds. But one thing, the reason I actually wrote this fucking fanfiction, because Jane the Killer's backstory is a lot less detailed than Jeff's. And I guess I figured, hey, it'd be fun to give Jane the Killer a backstory too. So that's why I wrote this. In the, like, literal sense. In the case of, like, exasperation, why did I write this? The answer was because I was a teenager with undiagnosed mental illness. Never mind all that. Back to the thing that could loosely be called a story. Chapter 1. The Hospital. Jane? Helen's timid voice broke through the thick bandages surrounding Jane's face. Jane? She asked again, this time with more force. Jane mumbled aggressively through her binds. Binds? Hang on, that's not the... It's not the word I would use for bandages. Her vitals are stable, but we need to keep her under observation for a few days before we can be sure. That's a... Should that be... Yeah, no, that should be a... Why am I correcting my grammar? What is wrong with... I just opened up Notepad. Ooh, I'm doing well. The doctor's voice was meant to be calm, but Jane heard the fear he failed to hide, which begged the question, what was he afraid of? Maybe the doctor knew her from somewhere. Maybe his ward relied on her company for funding. Maybe he was fearful for all his patients' lives. None of these seemed likely. Yet Jane kept them in the back of her mind. Don't correct my spelling. I'm not. That was just a reflex. I don't even know why I did that. She could just make out 3 strip lights on the roof above her hospital bed. That's called a ceiling. Which hurt her eyes compared to the darkness she had been living in for... How long had it been? However, the doctor continued, there is something you should know about before we take off the bandages. Oh god, Jane thought, he's afraid of me. The burns she sustained have deformed her face entirely. It's nothing life-threatening, but her face will never look the same again. I can recommend several cosmetic products to help conceal the scarring, but her eyes... Burns? Deformed? What's he talking about? And what's wrong with my eyes? They Well, it's best if you see for yourself. Helen squeaked slightly, as she always did when she was nervous. Because she's a mouse. Tricked ya. This is actually anthropic. It's not. The bandages slowly disappeared from her view, and the strip lights blinded her much more than they had before. She squeezed her eyes shut before the doctor's voice instructed her to open them. She obliged and slowly peeled them open, allowing them to adjust to the sudden change in light. Helen screamed before clamping a hand over her mouth in an attempt to stifle it, but it didn't do much to help. The doctor smiled fearfully at Jane before asking, "How do you feel, Miss Eleanor?" Or Miss Elena, however the fuck I pronounced it. You know Jeff would be a wolf? Absolutely. Jane looked at the terrified expression on her PA's face before answering. "Well, I can guess I'm feeling a lot better than Helen is." The doctor forced a laugh and smiled reassuringly. "Well, the good news is you won't experience any changes in your day-to-day routine. The bad news is, well, take a look." He held a large mirror in front of her, which she immediately snatched from his hand. Her skin was as white as a sheet, which was nicely contrasted by her ebony hair. Her eyes were jet black orbs peering out from her alabaster face. Oh. Hey guys. Can you guess what 14-year-old me's favorite dinosaur was? It was a thesaurus. Never ever call eyes orbs. They are orbs. Let's not kid ourselves. If eyes are anything, they are orbs. However, you are correct. You should never ever fucking call them orbs. She had a small cut on both sides of her mouth, warping her face into a demonic smile. She gasped slightly before grinning widely, wincing slightly. Gasped slightly. Whatever. That the pain doing so caused her. "I'm beautiful," she squealed delightedly, alternating her gaze between the doctor and Helen as they watched her rapid descent into madness. Subtlety! She tipped her wounded face back and cackled. Subtlety! "Is this, Helen whispered, gesturing towards her boss. "Normal? Yes. Hysteria is commonplace with people who have just resurfaced from anesthesia-induced sleep," the doctor replied cheerfully. Fucking... whatever. Helen let out a sigh of relief at this news as Jane finished with her laughter. "I'm starving," Jane announced. "Am I free to leave yet? I've got a real hankering for a Big Mac right now." Would you believe it if I told you that at the time of writing this, I had never had a Big Mac? Product placement? God. Maybe McDonald's would have closed down years ago if they just sponsored me. Yeah, would you believe me if I told you that at that point in my life I had never had a Big Mac? Because it's true. Also, All they eat is Borgor. No, I think what I was specifically inspired by was like the scene from Iron Man 1 where he gets back from being held hostage by terrorists in a cave and he just asks for a Big Mac or whatever. That's what I'm ripping off. Oh, so that's what I was inspired by. But yeah. The doctor laughed, becoming more and more relaxed in his patient's presence. I'm sorry, but we've got to keep you here for a few more days to make sure you don't develop any other symptoms. It's standard medical procedure, nothing to worry about. Just lay there. I'll get your assistant to bring you some food, and we can get you out and back into the world as soon as possible, the doctor explained. Hang on, Jane thought. His voice seems familiar. Do I know you from somewhere? Jane asked the doctor. He shook his head. Not as far as I know. He sounds awfully similar to that man. She glared at him as he turned away, but her fears were removed when she saw him tuck a tuft of blonde hair into his hairnet. She sighed heavily and allowed herself to drift off to sleep. I don't want to read this next line. So, okay. For some fucking reason, I decided for this to be like some sort of... There was like some weird sexual tension between these two. That's how I feel right now. Hey there, sweetheart. I'm Jeff the Killer. I'm going Jeff to kill you. Yuck. No, okay, but this is another... this is another instance of me, like, forgetting that this is supposed to be set in America. Because when I read that line, I don't read it as an American saying sweetheart. I read that as like a British, like, hey there, sweetheart. That's what I read that line as. I don't read that as like, hey there, sweetheart. It's it was not a good writer. Arguably, I'm still not, but that's besides the point. I don't write anymore. Jane jerked awake. First thing she does when she wakes up, cranking that. Oh, a man was sat. Why is sat? Hang on, Google. Why do you think this is wrong? Fuck off. Alright, this is the same. Shut up. A man was sat at the foot of her bed, rubbing a hand against his chin. She couldn't make out any features, but she could tell from the growl in his voice who he was. You know, when I found out you were alive, he growled aggressively, as opposed to growling placidly. I don't fucking know. I had to find you, which, considering you're a murder victim, was hard. But I did it. He chuckled at his achievement. Plus 10G. Jane grunted slightly at his presence at her feet. Jane grunted slightly at his presence at her feet. Yeah, you know when somebody appears at the foot of your bed, you just go, because they're next to your feet. He flicked on the desk lamp next to her bed, moving closer towards her. Saliva from his scarred mouth dropped onto her forehead. See, now this is funny. When people write about Jeff the Killer and make art, nobody considers the fact that if he has, like, a wound in his cheek, he's gonna be just dribbling all over the place. Oh. She made no attempt to wipe it off, only stared into the bloodshot eyes of her killer. What a strong female character. He stared back, determined to intimidate her. Eventually, Jeff broke the silence. "Ah, my dear," he said somewhat cheerfully. "This is the reason I targeted you. You've got a bit of fight in you, even when you're already dead." Jane shook her head before growling. Everybody's growling. Maybe this is an anthrofic. Hang on. Did I put subliminal furry messaging into this shitty fanfic? Goddamn. The way I see it, the only one who's dead is you. Once they find you here, they'll send you to death row. Jeff laughed. Loudly. Raw XD. Look, I may have been a raw XD kid, but this was not that. This was my, I'm gonna wear all black fucking hooded sleeved jumpers in the middle of summer. Because, ooh, the darkness. The darkness in my heart. It's too much to bear. My inner furry trying to express itself? Oh, I misspoke when reading your message. I'm not a furry, so. You can't prove it. Sure. Alright, sheep wife. What do you mean? Yeah, you're right. What am I talking about? Let's get back to this. Oh, you think that, you know, the persona, so not a furry, checkmate liberal? Neither do I. Checkmate liberal yourself. So how dare you call me a liberal? Where the fuck am I? Checkmate comedy? Yeah, that works. Oh, you think that... He stopped to continue laughing. You actually think they'll find me? Look, love. See what I mean? See what I fucking... Oh, I forgot that this isn't a... This isn't a photo editing software. Scroll and go scroll. It doesn't zoom in. But you see what I mean about me very clearly trying to, like, set this in America, but then just not understanding how Americans work? He dragged himself further up the bed towards her. Question about the positioning here. Imagining Jeff as an orc. Look, love. I've been doing this for 4 years, and I haven't been caught once. They put you in me in the newspaper once. What's the newspaper? Where's the ring? Question about positioning. If he already moved himself up the bed to turn on the light, where is he now going? Is he shifting into the 4th dimension? What is this fuckery? He paused to reminisce about the experience. That was fun. They completely got my face wrong, but beggars can't be choosers, eh? Jane spat up at the man, which he wiped off with one slender finger before smearing it onto her forehead. Simba! Damn, this really is. Ooh. She slid her hand towards the bedside table, reaching out for her handbag. Jeff didn't notice, and carried on talking. The other thing I want to bring up, what a hilarious name for a creepypasta character. This is Jeff the killer. Well, this is Greg the arsonist. That's my mate Barry, the serial bank robber. That's Martin, the eco-terrorist. Yeah, there you go, Bob the terrorist. Bob! Bob. British GTA crew. Oh, this is Jeff the killer. We got Dave the bank robber. Got Steve the vault cracker. Jesus. When I got you, I was gonna cut you up. Slowly. Buzzer bomb go away! It's Buzzer! He handles what goes explode! He dragged out the O to add dramatic effect. Why didn't I just write lots of O's? I feel like I was probably told in like an English class that you shouldn't do that. But it definitely doesn't read as well. But not too much. Wouldn't want you passing out from shock now, would we? Here's another thing. Slightly TMI. But you may see some undiscovered kinks shining through. We're gonna ignore that. Jane smiled sarcastically, her hand still edging its way over to the bag. Damn, she jerked awake and now she's edging? Fuck, dude. Give me a freak like that. Jeff shot his arm beside her head, causing her to whimper slightly as he lowered his face down until it was less than an inch away from hers. Giggled childishly at the sound before carrying on with his description. Ew. Then I was gonna break your legs. See? He clicked his tongue twice to emphasize the point, cocking his head sideways as he did so. Just to hear you, he inhaled sharply as he imagined the sound. Scream! Fucking... Jane's hand ventured inside the bag, slowly searching for the small pocket knife she kept with her. Smart lady. Then I was going to let you sit there sobbing for a bit, then I'd cut your gut open, let it all hang out. Fuck. 14-year-old me is hilarious. Chuckled morbidly at the thought. It wouldn't be the first time I'd done something like that, but it'd be exciting nonetheless. I am quickly gonna hide the scream. And just... I'm just gonna censor a little bit here, don't mind me. Just because I don't particularly want it here. Where are we going? When a gal lets it hang out, yo, fucking sing. Got it, Jane thought to herself. She flipped it open as she pulled her hand from the bag. As Jeff repositioned him, he's already on top of her. I'm an idiot. That's... At this point, he's ventured into the 5th dimension if he's still trying to get on top. Five guys be like... Sorry, there's some issues with the production team. We're having a communications breakdown. Whatever. Fuck it. Five guys be like, I'm gonna shift into the 5th dimension to get on top of you. He giggled at the terrified expression on her face. I'm just gonna take... Jane moved her arm round the back of Jeff's head. She poised the knife, ready to strike it down into his back. Time. She hammered her arm down, plunging the knife deep into the man's back. He yelled with pain as Jane leapt from her bed, grabbing her bag as she did so. She stumbled as she escaped from the private room, but kept her balance and kept running. So why fucking mention it, idiot? Jeff ripped the knife from his back and laughed raucously. You've made a fool of me this time, Miss Eleanor. He yelled after her, waving the knife as he did so, but next time you won't be so lucky. She ignored him and kept running out into the world. Christ. So what do we think after chapter 1? What are we all thinking about? I've got a certain style, don't I? You're thinking about girls. You're always thinking about girls, so that doesn't mean much. You should not be hooked. It's not as bad as stuff from Creepypasta Chronicles. It gets worse. So don't worry about that. Chapter 2. The Office. Starring Steve Carell and that other guy. I thought you were reacting to the concept of The Office for a second there, rather than making an Office reference, because I haven't seen The Office. I know, shock horror. What am I going to put in my Tinder bio now? Ooh. Neither. Fair. For all I can tell, I'm not missing much. I understand. Yes. No. Yes. I completely understand where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. It's me reading this. If 14-year-old me handed me this, this is how I would react. I'd be like, mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. Jane ripped the sunglasses from her face as she paced past her assistant, ear glued to the phone as it was most mornings. Mr. Lee? Jane asked, genuinely concerned. Too fucking right, Helen confirmed. He's been on the phone to me for the past half hour, keeps wanting lower rates for the quick clear spray. Jane held out her palm. Give me the phone. Helen obliged. Listen here, you little shit. She yelled into the receiver. Take the rates I give you, or piss off to another supplier. It's as simple as that. She slammed the handset down into the charging station before sighing loudly. Helen stared at the phone for a few seconds. You know he's gonna call back tomorrow asking for the exact same thing, right? She asked, only half joking. Jane chuckled. Yeah, but it was worth a try. So how was your weekend? Fuck is this? Helen shrugged. Same old, except I had to give a witness description of that man. Jane shivered at the memory of that night in the hospital, but ignored it. Sorry about that, she said. What does Google want? Why is it... What do you mean, comma? It's the end of a sentence! Helen leant towards her boss. It's a miracle you survived, though. You got stabbed right in the windpipe. I'm not sure how you're still standing here. Jane laughed. Me neither, Helen. Me neither. She rose from her position over the handset. Google desperately trying to help my 14-year-old self. Except it's wrong. That was the end of a sentence. Google would have made it actively worse. That's the story I'm sticking to. Jane laughed. Nope, already read that bit. Helen waved her at her, smiling. Will do, Miss Elena, she replied cheerfully, before tapping away at her keyboard to open up Facebook. Remember Facebook? Jane marched towards the elevator and pressed a single finger against the up button. You know, the up button that elevators have. Oh, wait, no. No, I know what I'm talking about. She means on the outside of the elevator. Alright. I give myself... You get a pass for that. Miss Elena! The voice came from behind her and she spun around, half expecting to see her killer. Instead, she saw the man behind the surgical scrubs. Helen looked curiously over the top of the desk at the man standing in the foyer, analyzing the build of him. Jane chuckled nervously. Oh, hey, she said awkwardly. She glanced around at the elevator, mentally cursing the architect who made the building so tall. I've got an appointment in like 10 minutes, so... I came looking for you this morning, he announced. You weren't there. What? Hang on, why the fuck does the doctor not know that she was nearly murdered? I'm sorry, what? What is this? What am I doing? What's going on here? Hello? Flashback, mate? Fucking... No, it's not, I can tell you that. I think I'm just an idiot. Helen glared at her boss while loosening her collar slightly at the sight of the doctor. Cool. Jane stared at her feet. Oh yeah, I meant to tell you I'd left. Guess I forgot. The lift behind her pinged. Well, I gotta go. It was nice talking to you, Dr. Evans. Dr. Lou Evans, he replied, brushing a strand of hair from his face. I'm guessing he's meant to be like a Leon Kennedy-looking motherfucker. Dr. Evans, she paced towards the open doors, looking quickly over her shoulder. I'll catch you some other time. She palmed the button for the top floor while peering out the door at the flustered doctor trying to ward off her PA's hopeless attempts to flirt with him. She breathed a sigh of relief as the lift began its slow ascent. She closed her eyes and tried to recollect the events of the past 8 hours. 8 hours?! Then why did you ask Helen how her weekend was? You were there! First she grabbed a taxi, then she phoned Helen and told her she'd be in tomorrow. Then she ran home and tried to sleep. Well, you didn't run, you were in a taxi. Then Dr. Evans rang. Then he rang again. Then he rang a third time. Then she fell asleep. Then she was woken by Dr. Evans' assistant trying to call her. Then she turned on the TV and saw that someone had been killed in their bedroom. Plot! Jane sighed. She knew she was incredibly lucky to have survived 2 encounters with the man, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her. As soon as she entered her office, she drew the curtains and set to work typing some statistics for the meeting she had 24 hours and 7 minutes away. Not relevant. Miss Elena. The intercom buzzed about 5 minutes after Jane had sat down. She pressed the button that allowed her to speak. Go ahead, Helen. Dr. Evans told me that you have to go see him at 3:30 this afternoon at the hospital. Jane sighed before cursing the man. Let him know I'll be there. Yeah, you heard her. Jane's eyes widened in shock when she realized that the doctor was still standing downstairs. See you later, Miss Elena. His voice sounded much cracklier through the intercom. Almost like... No, she thought to herself. Keep it together. He's nothing to do with the man. 4 hours later, she woke up. sheets of paperwork stuck to her face. Glancing on the display at her laptop, she realized Glancing at the display on her laptop, she groaned as she realized she only had 2 hours until her appointment with Dr. Evans. The intercom buzzed, but she ignored it, turning to the half-empty bottle of whiskey sat next to it. She didn't bother looking for a glass, and instead unscrewed the cap and took a long swig. Then she came up for air and coughed loudly before giggling at the sound. She giggles a lot at stupid shit. She looked up at the closed curtains and noticed that the window was open. She cocked her head to the side, like a dog, pondering whether or not it had been earlier. Then her eyes travelled to the ground. What does Google have a problem with travelled? Oh, I did spell that wrong? Cool. Travelled. Directly beneath the window, and she saw shattered remnants of it. She looked nervously towards the door and saw the silhouette of a man. He withdrew a hunting knife from his belt and span it between his fingers slowly. That's not... Span? Is span a word? Yeah, span is a word, but that's not what it means. Ooh, I got a A in English. Can you believe it? Spanner. I am a fucking spanner. Span it between his fingers. Fuck off. God. Also, side note, if she's in a skyscraper, how the fuck did he get in through the window? Spider Jeff. Spider Jeff. Sick parkour. Assassin's Creed. Requiescat pace. It's me, Ezio Auditore, the killer. Hello again, my dear. My grandfather fucking greets me. It's not true, actually. He doesn't. He just says, hello. I don't want to read this chapter. I don't want to... What is this? I'm just skimming it. What is this? Let's speed run this. I can already tell it's cringe. It's a good thing I'm stabbing you. Oh. Ooh. Also, his voice triggered something inside Jane's mind, one of her basic instincts. She stood up from her desk and offered him the bottle of whiskey. What is... Am I implying here that Jane's instinct upon seeing someone with a knife is to be like, here you go, have a bevy. Either that or she's just a massive slag. Quick and treat! Oh no! Ooh. 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 You see, when a cougar wants to eat your face, give it a cold one. God, you're right. What, you're about to get gored by a rhino? Simply give it a vodka and coke, and maybe it'll calm the fuck down. Bitten by a poisonous snake? Get the Jaegers in. That'll teach him. He drew himself from the shadows. He's bad at art. And graciously accepted the offering. Jane walked around him silently, running a single finger along his shoulder and smiling. He grinned back, dripping spit onto her crimson carpet. Do you want to know a fun fact about this building? She asked him quietly, leaning towards him. His smile widened. Go on then. She leant onto his shoulder and pointed at the floor. This building used to belong to a mob boss, she whispered flirtatiously. This building used to belong to a mob boss. Wanna fuck? We kept all the decorations when we moved in here, especially the carpet up here. She ran a pinky finger down his doorstep. What? I can't think of anything less sexy than somebody using their pinky finger. Murder carpet? That's what I'm getting at. This room belonged to the head honcho. If you were invited up to his office out of the blue, you were being invited to die. He made the carpet this color to prevent anyone knowing if someone had been shot, other than the gunshot. Jeff laughed. It's a good thing I'm stabbing you then. The big cheese. Yeah, it'd be like that. The giant rat that makes all the rules. Jane laughed louder. Vinny. It's the al dente brothers. They got the meatballs. Oh. Was there even a laughter dick measuring contest? Love it. Surely we can have a little fun before then, she announced. Attention. Right? Jeff looked at her, unsure of what he was hearing. What exactly do you mean by fun? Jane laughed again. I mean, why don't we play a game before you kill me? She wrapped a leg around his. Let's play hide and seek. Jane shoved her leg off of his and backed away, brandishing the knife along with a snarl. Look here, I don't know what sort of person to take me for. You gotta wine and dine, Jeff. Jeff's a Sigma male. He's on that grind set. He hasn't got time for women. Is this still scary Halloween music? Or Nintendo Halloween music? What is this? This is from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, apparently. I think it sucks, but that's just me. Jeff's not a dirty slut. Too right. Yeah. She waved off his protest with a single hand. You're a professional and all that shit. Jeff stared confusedly at her. Doesn't mean you can't toy with me a little. She hopped onto her desk. 3-foot standing leap. Beckoning him with a single finger. He took a step cautiously forward. She shook her head at him, to which he began to charge. Ooh. She launched her drawer open and whipped out her pistol. She cocked it, forcing Jeff to stop in his tracks. But she's on the desk. What? What? Now look, you son of a bitch, she said, pointing the gun at his temple. Just say head. Just say head. I don't know why you're trying to kill me, and frankly, I don't give a fuck either. What's gonna happen now is that you're gonna hide, and it's gonna be my turn to find you. She tightened her grip on the trigger. What is... Jeff backed up slightly. This isn't how it's supposed to go. He shook his head violently before smiling evilly. No! So let's make it slightly harder for you. Quick as a flash, he roundhouse kicked the gun from her hand. You know. On the return spin, you're not meant to do a 360 when you do a roundhouse kick. Jeff Norris! Jeff Wick. On his return spin, he fired his knife hand into her heart. Her gun, the gun, her finger was on the trigger of. Yeah, I know, right? No firearm discipline. To be fair, the firearm discipliners don't point the gun at something you're not willing to destroy. I don't blame her for wanting to destroy this man. Oh dear. She gasped as it entered her. No! You stop that. You stop that right now, 14-year-old me. Before gripping his hand, his smile faded as hers grew. He tried to let go, but she maintained her grip. He head-butted her. Not head-butted. Head-butted her. Knocking her out. He picked the pistol up from the floor, admiring the chrome finish. What is Jane Agent 47? He got the dual silver ballers. Ass hat. Headbutt. Yeah. You get the idea. Oh. Whoosh. My legs is starting to ache. Just my mic here. Get nice and cozy. For a shitty story. I was gonna say hour, but it's unfortunately been longer than that by now. I never was one for guns, he told her, but I can see the attraction. Appeal. The word is appeal. Christ alive. Personally, I think it's a weapon for little bitches too afraid of the physical attachment stabbing includes. But what do I know? That is specifically ripping off the scene from The Dark Knight, where the Joker's like, guns are too quick! Ooh. He gripped the handle, caressing the trigger with his index finger. Now Jeff's only horny for guns. Now then, dear, he concluded. Go to sleep. He pressed the gun against the snarling face of his victim before pulling the trigger. Another thing to note here, why Jeff keeps saying, go to sleep. That's something of Jeff's catchphrase. Don't ask me why that's his catchphrase, but it is. And don't ask me why he has a catchphrase, but he does. Ugh. Page are we on? Just out of curiosity. 9 of 36. So that's... we're a quarter of the way through. Hang on. We're a quarter of the way through, and there's... how many chapters? Ignore this. This spoilers. 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 There's 11 chapters. Okay. That, I guess, makes sense. Chapter 3. The Hunter. Miss Elena, when I said I wanted to see you, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Jane sat up in her bed, facing Dr. Evans. He looked worriedly at her, and the bandage covering most of her face. She was in the same room as last time, but the lights had been turned down slightly at her request. She smiled mischievously at him, pretending it wasn't a big deal. Well, what can I say? Go big or go home. Her assistant stood beside her bed, clutching a small first aid kit. She was the one who'd found Jane there, dead for all intents and purposes. She'd attempted to fix it with first aid, but understandably, it hadn't worked well. Did Now then, the doctor continued. Care to explain how you survived this? He gestured towards a black and white photo of Jane's head, blood pouring from the bullet wound. The hole had healed now. First aid, not much help when you've been Jeff the killed. Ooh. Jane shrugged dismissively. You're the doctor. You tell me. He rubbed his brow, a pained expression spreading across his face. Honestly, he pulled the surgical mask from his face. You should have died in that office building. I have absolutely no idea how I'm still talking to you. Jane sighed defeatedly. Well, sorry for defeating logic, but she waved her arm, feigning royalty. Here I am. Dr. Evans. A walkie-talkie on the doctor's belt crackled into life. He brought it up to his mouth. Why the fuck would a doctor have a walkie-talkie? What? What? Go ahead, Susan. There's a, man here. He says he wants to... Her voice dropped off as she asked the man something. Oh, okay. He says he wants to... Her voice was cut short by a gunshot. Holy mother of fuck! I hate myself. I hate everyone who read this and who didn't tell me how bad it was. Jane yelled as Jeff burst through the door. He pulled the pistol out quickly and tugged on the trigger, launching a spurt of blood from the back of Jane's PA's head. Just call her Helen. She flipped backwards slightly. Do you mean fell? Do you mean she fell backwards? Landing onto the floor with a thunk. The doctor vaulted over his trolley. Oh, you know. The back door that hospital rooms have. Ooh. Also, the doctor vaulted over his trolley. Ooh. Dr. Evans is a part-time stuntman, evidently. I'll get you someday, Lou. Okay, here's another thing. I'm pronouncing it Lou. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce that name. But in the canon of the creepypasta, that is Jeff's brother's name. Spelt like that. So that is something that I refuse to take credit for being stupid. Also, fucking the parents of these two kids, right? I'm getting ahead. That's spoilers. Whatever, they're fucking brothers. We'll find out in a minute. The galaxy brain on the parents to be like, let's name this one Jeff. And let's name this one Liu. Like, Jesus. One of those two was the favorite child. And I think it's the one called Jeff. I'll get you someday, Lou, Jeff yelled after the fleeing medic. Jane leapt from her bed straight towards the murderer, technically speaking. You don't know that. She grabbed the gun from his hand, accidentally setting it off. The bullet... Hang on. No. No, there's no... Hang on. Oh, okay, no, they're synonyms. Okay. Wait. Are they? I can't tell. Oops! I just closed the music. Plowing is not a word you would use to describe a bullet. Me neither. Gotta love these search results. Nimbumbo. To be fair, a bullet plowing through something, I get it. Uh, Carry on. The bullet plowed through a television. The newsreel reading, Mysterious Killer Strikes Again. She chuckled at the irony of the situation. Yeah, that's one thing that every writer knows to do, is when you do something that's funny or ironic, you should definitely make one of the characters call attention to it. Allowing herself a second of respite from the fight. Jeff clawed at her, which she dodged easily. She grabbed a scalpel from the trolley, swiping at Jeff. He dodged it with equal ease. She swung her gun hand... Okay, no, she did actually take the gun. Swung a gun hand round, striking him in the side of the head. He fell to the ground, clutching his wound. He sprung up from the floor, headbutting again, Jane to the ground. He grabbed a smaller scalpel from the trolley and forced her mouth open. He put the blade into the corner of her mouth and dragged it against the cut already made, making it larger. Why won't you just die already? He told pull out of her mouth. I just skipped that a little bit. Out of her mouth as she laughed, spraying blood into his eyes. He put it into the other side of her mouth and repeated the process. She continued to laugh, which continued to aggravate him. Shut the fuck up, he screamed, almost hysterical. She spat blood into his open mouth. That's unhygienic. Causing him to gag. She shoved him off. She shoved him up, did she? Jerking awake and edging, now she's shoving him off. Whilst he was momentarily incapacitated, he's trying to connect, forcing him to gain his balance. No, fucking... What? She shoved him off while he was incapacitated, which forced him to gain... That's not how words work. That's not how sentences is. She leapt up, making him fall. No, she's fucking... Oh, baby V. Baby V, you should have paid more attention in class. Oh, you should have done something in class instead of drawing shitty fucking deviant art anime characters in your English textbook. Ugh. She dropped the gun and ran out of the hospital, blood streaming from her mouth. When she was back to her office, she grabbed a sheet of paper and a pen and began to write. 1. Find out who the man is. 2. Find out how he knows Dr. Evans. 3. Find the man. 4. Kill the man. Satisfied with her checklist, she grabbed a long black scarf. Memento-ass plotline. I've never seen Memento, so I'll take your word for it. She grabbed a long black scarf and tied it around her face, covering the scars. She grabbed an ebony Did Did I just not know any other synonyms for black? Just say black. Just say she's wearing all black. Say she grabbed a beret the same color as the scarf and fixed it onto her head. That is fair. Fixing something onto your head is like archaic, but not incorrect. She threw. She's monotone. She dresses like me. I'm just gonna put that out there. Wearing all black, that's me, baby. This woman heard black goes with everything and said, bet. She threw a black trench coat onto her shoulders and paced towards the elevator. She didn't put it on, she just threw it on her shoulders. She had a job to do, and she wasn't gonna fail. Cringe. Cringe fail wife. Jane. Chapter 4, The Boys Who Didn't Live. That is a Harry Potter reference. That's like a play on The Boy Who Lived. Get it? It's great. Rain pouring on her shoulders, a woman stood beside the grave of her 17-year-old son, his headstone read, Troy Vanquez, not Vasquez, which is a real name. Troy Vanquez. 1996 to 2013. I was right, I was 14 when I wrote this. I'm sorry if you got lost, Miss Vanquez. Hate myself. Jane walked silently up behind the crying mother. She reached an arm around the woman in an attempt to comfort her. Thank you, Miss Elena, she replied, holding out the hand not being used to hold her umbrella. How many hands does this woman have? You've put an arm around the woman. Unless the arm you put around is the one holding the umbrella. But then you're also, like, going in for a handshake? Octopus woman? Damn. Need me a freak like that. Are a furry? Octopus isn't fur. It's well documented I like fish. Not in that way. Haven't even watched The Shape of Water. Grow up. The woman wiped her eyes with her rain-soaked sleeve. A fishy? Oh, a fishy, fishy fish? Miss Elena, it's just so sudden. I'm gonna exposit. Troy was such a lovely boy, hardly ever hurt a fly. Until he started hanging around with that Randy fellow. Her words petered off. Ooh. Damn, we got Randy fellas in the chat. Any Randy fellas watching? Put a number 7 in chat if you're a Randy fellow. Jesus. Oh. Her words petered off. Also, not incorrect, but very funny. As she gestured towards a different grave. That's him over there, killed by the boy he attacked. Jane saw her opportunity. Do you, by any chance, know who this boy was? The one they attacked, I mean? The woman nodded. His family lived about 5 doors down from us. Just like the band. 3 doors down. They'd only been settled for a couple of weeks when the 3 boys, Randy, my Troy, and their other friend Keith. What? What? They'd only been settled for a couple of weeks when the 3 boys, Randy, my Troy, and their other friend Keith, and then the sentence just stops? I haven't deleted anything there. I haven't edited this. Any edits you've seen, I have done. Like, on stream. You've seen them. What the fuck is that? Their boy, John, I think his name was at their neighbor's birthday party, showing his face to get himself known, I would guess. So, I'm not gonna skip anything. Johnny the murderer. Yeah, I'm not gonna skip anything. But what I am gonna say is that this is kind of like vaguely going over the actual Jeff the Killer, or the original, because it's been rewritten since then. But the original 2014-ish, no, 20, whenever the fuck, the original Jeff the Killer creepypasta story. I'm basically just going over that here. So if the story of this is bad, it's not my fault. Alright? Let's get that out of the way. Jane nodded understandingly. Did he have any scars, like, on his face? Hang on a sec. How the fuck does this woman know about these people? The kids being killed. But doesn't know who Jeff is. I'm stupid. The woman shook her head confusedly. No, he was a perfectly normal boy. Or at least, he was the last time I saw him. He had to go to the hospital after the attack. Now that you mention it, I seem to remember someone saying he had to have his face reconstructed. How did that go? Jane nodded again. Thank you, Miss Vanquez, and again my condolences. She bowed her head slightly before turning around to leave. The woman waved. No problem, Miss Elena. As she was pacing away, Jane thought of one last question. Do you know the address of Randy's mother? Yeah, it's, I'll text you the details as soon as I can. Let me just, she looked down at the grave, stay a little longer. Jane dismissed this with a casual wave of the hand. Take all the time you need. Jane, you gotta give her your phone number. Pulling a hatchback in front of Randy's house. Jane readjusted the scarf to hide her injuries. She twitched in pain as she accidentally scraped one side. Who is it? A man's voice growled through the intercom of the apartment. I need to speak to you. Is this the house of the late Randy? She released the microphone button. Late Randy is a great porno name. Late Randy. He always comes late. Come in. Ugh. The man's voice was much softer after her comment. The door buzzed, allowing her entry. She jogged up the stairs to apartment 3C, the door of which was occupied by Randy's father, his hand outstretched. But we asked about the mother! We asked about the mother, not the father. Continuity error. The name's Bill. Bill Friedman. Which means the son's name is Randy Friedman. He's horny, but he's also a pussy. Ooh. Bill Friedman, he told her as she clasped his hand tightly. He brushed a tear from his eye with his free hand before releasing her hand and gesturing for her to enter the apartment. So, Miss... Jane smiled understandingly. Elena, Miss Jane Elena. How many times is this woman gonna introduce herself, do you think? Bill smiled back. Miss Elena, what can I do for you? Her smile dropped slightly. I'd like to know about the person who killed your son. Bill sobbed, if that's alright with you. What fucking song is this? Ooh. Why does everyone introduce themselves like James Bond? Because I'm an idiot. Because I was an idiot. And I thought that was cool. And to be fair, it is cool. Like, the name's V. V for Valentine's. I don't know, it's just cool. The name's Bond. Jane Bond. He bowed his head slightly before thumping the wall to his left. You should introduce yourself like that always. I should, you're right. He looked up, rage burning in his eyes. That motherfucker. He took poor Randy from us, right in this very house. He swept his arms around to emphasize this. Jane nodded slowly. Do you have any idea who the killer was? He nodded hastily. Damn. Are you a slow nodder or a hasty nodder? It was this boy, Jeff. Jeff. Him and Randy had had a bit of a run-in a couple years before. And it ended with Randy being in a critical condition and Jeff with horrible burn marks. Everyone thought he was dead. Randy, that is. But he managed to wake up a couple of weeks on life support. Jane nodded, making a mental note of the boy's name. Then out of the blue, a few days ago, there's a crash in Randy's room. I go in there to see what's happening, and I see that Jeff boy on top of him. Knife plunged through my boy's windpipe. He laughed as I lunged for him and leapt from the room out of the window, like Spider-Man. Bill sank into a crimson armchair. Fuck off. Fuck off. He's already sitting down. Isn't he? Okay, no, I didn't actually specify he was sitting down. He looked so different from the last time I saw him. Jane saw her chance to identify the boy. What did he look like? Bill chuckled morbidly at the thought. What the fuck does this sentence mean? Bill chuckled morbidly at the thought. When he was normal, before him and Randy had their little bust up, he was perfectly fine. Probably had a girlfriend in his last town, that sort of guy. For reference, if Jeff and Randy are the same age as Troy, that would mean that Jeff was like 15 when he was normal. Who the fuck is like... I mean, no, to be fair, straight people do love doing that, don't they? Straight people will see two toddlers of different genders interacting and be like, they love each other. They're made for each other. Break out the wedding planner. You know? So, you know. After the hospital visit, Bill sighed. He'd bleached white skin. He'd cut a smile into his face and burn out his eyelids. He looked like a total fucking psycho. That is also part of the original story. Jane smiled internally. That's my guy. Jane pretended to look shocked. That's horrible. I know. But he's gone now. I reported him to the cops, but they fucked up his mugshot, so he was never found. That's not a mugshot. That's an artist's impression. Jane nodded, the pieces finally coming together. I'll leave you in peace, Mr. Freedman. Thank you for your time. Ugh. He dismissed this with a wave. It was a pleasure. If it's not too much trouble, could you do me one more favor? Anything, he replied quickly. Can you tell me where Randy's friend Keith lived? Bill searched for a notepad. He scribbled the address down. It's across town. So you probably won't get there until nightfall if you're planning on going tonight. Jane nodded. Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Or whatever the fuck she said. She backed out the door and down to her car. She smiled widely once inside it before typing the address into her GPS. Slowly, she pulled into the driveway of a luxury apartment, flicking off her headlights as she did so. Whilst walking to the door, she realized she was only 2 streets away from her own apartment. That's when you noticed? She knocked on the door, bringing an elderly Russian woman to the doorway. What the fuck? Так то, сука, думаю, снона. I don't know what that. Let's do a quick. Let's do a quick Google Translate of this one. Did I put something horrible in my creepy? Who etos what? Who is this bitch I think she is? Who is this bitch I think she is? Who is this bitch I think she is? Oh, is that meant to be like, who's this bitch think she is? Also, probably more important, why the fuck didn't I just... Why did I have to write it in Russian? I'd prefer it if you didn't call me a bitch. I'm not reading the rest of this chapter. This is just Jane. Wait. Oh. Wait. Okay, I'm not reading this whole chapter because it's weird. But I do wanna. They were killed by Jeff. Oh shit! He rested his head in his hands, sobbing slightly. Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shitting shit shit! Oh fuck! So he's alive. Mr. Keith, Natalia's voice rang through the hallways once again. There's a man here, Her voice was cut short, followed by a thud. Jane stared at the door, waiting for it to burst open. Jane, is Jeff alive? Slurp earned a nerve. Jane looked at Keith. Oh, he's alive, alright. Is this fucking Ghost song? Oh, it's Dummy from Undertale. Whatever. Jeff appears in the doorway, staring at the back of the kid's head, knife in hand. He hadn't noticed Jane yet. Keith spun round before wheeling himself backwards away from the killer. Oh, hey, Jeff, Keith said nervously. Long time no see, eh? Jeff smiled, dripping saliva onto the carpet. I told you he'd be dripping saliva everywhere. He laughed sadistically. Yes, Keith, it's been far too long. I bet you thought you'd got away with it, didn't you? Keith murmured for a second. choosing his words carefully. Okay, fine, he caved. I thought you were dead, but you gotta know, it wasn't my idea. Jeff nodded slowly. I know it wasn't, but you still went with it. In fact, it was you that made me like this. If I'm wrong, Jeff's not a wolf, he's a mastiff. Yeah. Keith backed away slightly, so at least you've got that going for you. Keith stared at him, utterly confused. What? You like looking like this? Now it was Jeff's turn to look confused. Of course. I'm beautiful, right? Well... Jeff's face contorted with rage. Wrong answer, shitbag. Fuck. What's wrong with me? Ooh. Ooh. He lunged forward with his free hand and drew the knife back. Jane leapt from the shadows and wrenched the knife from Jeff's hand. You again, Jeff screamed at her, releasing Keith's neck and focusing on Jane. She span again. No. The knife through her fingers. What? Why does Jane have a knife? Also, she spanned the knife through her fingers with a certain grace. Before lunging at Jeff, he dodged it and she kicked out with her right leg. It hit him in the solar plexus. I don't know, what body part is the solar plexus? Fuck knows. I'm gonna look it up. Wait, is that his tummy? Solar plexus, your, like, tummy? Middle chest? That wouldn't wind you. Probably. I don't know, getting kicked on the chest, that would probably wind you. But also, how the fuck... she took the opportunity to stab him in the head. He saw this coming and rugby tackled her to the ground. Oh, you know. She dropped the knife. Keith picked it up and embraced it. Yeah. I want to give the knife a cuddle. Keeping it safe as the other two brawled on the floor. Jeff straddled her before hammering fists down on her. She raised her arms to defend herself before pushing both fists towards Jeff. They hit him in both eye sockets, dazing him and allowing Jane some respite. She wasted no time in pushing Jeff off and swinging the door open. Come on, she yelled to Keith. He threw the knife down and leapt over Jeff. Come on, let's go. 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Jane ran out the doorway and into the corridor. She saw the bloody corpse of Natalia and felt a pang of guilt. Keith made it to the doorway and froze, gurgling slightly. Just a slight gurgle. Jane span, again, round just in time. Also, notice how I'm always saying span, I'm saying round rather than around. That's just another Britishism, but also is very bad grammar. Just in time to see him fall to the ground, a knife embedded up to the hilt in the back of his skull. I don't think... Actually, no, it is called a hilt of a knife, I'm pretty sure. But that's more for daggers than, like, kitchen knives. I don't know. I would probably write that as a knife embedded up to the handle. But, I mean, hilt works. Jeff stumbled into the doorway behind him. Wait. Where'd the knife come from, then? Jane sprinted down the hallway, clicking the unlock button on her key fob. She tore out the front door before swinging the car door open, diving in and reversing away. She span, I hate this, the car round at the bottom of the driveway and sped off into the night, never once looking back. Chapter 5. Taking Inventory. Oh, I finally didn't start a chapter with the. Uh, we are halfway through. I need to take a break. I'll be back in a bit. Howdy. Welcome back. Bah, bah, bah. His music's fucking funky. That's from Guacamelee, that's why. Guacamelee bangs. Yeah, okay. Find out who the man is. X. Blah 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 blah. 1 down, 3 to go. Jane sank onto her bed. She folded the list back up. And fucking died. And thought about how her life had changed in the past couple days. Somewhat sadly, she remembered the meeting she was supposed to have had the day before. She realized that she had changed. She'd always been tough and very brash, but never like this. Before meeting Jeff, she'd only been in one fight, and that was over a boy. She lost. Son of millionaire Brian Richards was found dead by his father earlier this evening. She flicked on the TV and was greeted by the story she'd just been a part of. Sadly, she realized that if she told Keith to leave sooner, he may still be alive. That is how it happens. She got to him before Jeff by some weird coincidence, so she had to find a way of being one step ahead of Jeff at all times. Slowly she got up and prepared to call Dr. Evans, pulling his card out of her back pocket. Hello? Hello? Dr. Evans, she announced cheerfully. Hi, how are ya? How are ya? He chuckled slightly. I'm fine, I guess. How are you? Not gonna mention the murderer in the hospital? Okay. Jane giggled. Fuck, this woman loves giggling. Oh, you know, same old, same old. She took a breath. So I was wondering if I could come visit you someone tomorrow. Actually, it's my day off tomorrow. I don't know why. I need something to keep me sane. But you could come around my place if you want. Jane considered this. Yeah, sure. What's your address? 703 2nd Street. It's the grey house on the corner. I love how Google is yelling at me because I use the English spelling of grey. It keeps doing that. Okay, great. Jane said cheerfully. I'll see you tomorrow at noonish. Do Americans, like, have ish? Do Americans say ish? I don't think so. Okay, bye. He hung up. Jane flopped backwards onto her bed, realizing she was over 12 hours away from getting some cohesive answers. She closed her eyes and drifted off into an uneasy sleep. Her dreams were filled with images of Jeff, Dr. Evans, Keith's final pose, Helen, Bill, Mrs. Vanquez, and Natalia. Admittedly, not that much of Natalia, but she was there nonetheless. She awoke just as Jeff was about to kill her for the first time, his last words resounding in her head. Go to sleep. She sat bolt upright. Glancing at her alarm clock, she wiped her face. 10:00. I don't care what time that says. She dragged herself out of her duvet and into clothes. She grabbed a scarf and wrapped it around her scarred mouth. She stepped out onto the pavement and towards her car. It was only as she got close to it... Jojo posing, with the knife stuck in the back of his head. As she got close to she noticed that someone had keyed something into the side of it. As she got closer and closer, it became clearer what the message was. Go to sleep. She swung her head around cautiously before unlocking her hatchback. A smile formed on her face as she realized he had been close to her, but he hadn't tried to kill her. Either he liked the challenge or he was afraid of her. Either way, Jane would win. God, what a girl boss. Wish that were me. Chapter 6. Oh, this chapter's already cringe. Miss Elena, how lovely it is to see you out and about and not being attacked by a serial killer. Dr. Evans held the door open wide, and Jane slipped in past him. He smiled at her aroma. I am convinced now at this point that this is just low-key and anthrofic. I'm not gonna lie. Was I secretly a furry? Have I repressed memories of me being a furry? Snip snuff. Doctors love to sniff you as you enter their abode. Nice place. I'm not gonna look up the meme. You know the meme. If you know the meme, you know the meme. This can't have been bought on a doctor's salary. Jane smiled at him. You got me. He feigned pain. I got this swanky house from the Witness Protection Program. Jane raised an eyebrow suspiciously. Why were you on the Witness Protection Program? Lou rubbed a hand against his neck as he shut the door. There was an incident and bad things happened. Shut the fuck up. It's like written. I'm trying to write him to be like him. He's being cagey, but there was an incident and bad things happened. No notes. 10 out of 10. Jane ventured into the front room, not what Americans call it, and rested on the couch. What incident? Lou followed her in and sat opposite her. It's not something you'd tell someone you just met. Jane removed the scarf. It's a good thing we haven't just met then, isn't it? Lou chuckled at her brashness. Okay then. Well, a few years ago, my family moved to this area. Master Wayne. It was me, my mum, my dad, and my brother. After we got settled, we went to go get a bus to school. Out of nowhere, a bunch of guys came up and tried to mug me. My brother just snapped. He went crazy and beat them up. We bolted off without even looking back. A couple of days later, a police officer comes to the door and asks my little bro about the fight. I stepped in to stop him getting in trouble. Then I got sent to juvie. Couple of weeks later, I get let out and find out he's in hospital with burns. The song. Funky. Oh, this is from Lisa? Jesus. Sorry, I just had to jam the fuck out for a sec there. Oh. Where were we? I got home and seemed okay, but that evening I woke up to my mum screaming her head off. I got out of bed and heard my mum shout, "Get your gun," to my dad. Then she screamed. Then my dad screamed. By the time I'd made it to the hallway. And he burst out of my parents' room clutching a knife. He smiled at me, his scarred face emphasising it. He tilted his head and said, "Go to sleep." Then he hit me in the temple with the hilt of the knife, knocking me out. Jane looked at him cautiously, smiling internally. So what happened to Jeff after that? Lou gasped. How did you? Jane smiled. I did my research, Dr. Evans. Lou ran her hand through his hair. Jane chuckled at his discomfort. It's kind of fucked up. Holy shit, he gasped. So what do you need me for? I need to be one step ahead of him. I need to kill him. Lou shifted uneasily in his seat. And you think I can help? We're the only two people who've survived an encounter with him. He's bound to want us dead. We use one of us as bait, then get him. Lou looked at his shoes. It'll be hard, but I guess it could work. When somebody has erectile dysfunction. Fuck, I just read ahead. Lou, there's something you should know though. Jane's smile dropped. What? Have you ever heard of Slender Man? I forgot. Have you ever heard of Slender Man? Jane shook her head. He's a paranormal occurrence, a mythical creature come true. He lived in the woods near our house when we first moved. No! Ah, classic there misspelling. Classic wrong use of there. I thought I was better than this. Fucking T-H-E-I-R there instead of T-H-E-R-E. When we first moved there, I guess he took a certain liking to Jeff, his image infiltrating his dreams. When I was in juvie, he went into the woods and found him. He did something to him, something that made him snap. He became increasingly aggravated, easily irritated, more than the average teenager would be. Let's hope whatever he did wore off then. Hey Lou, if you were in juvie, how the fuck did you know what Jeff was up to? Chapter 7. The Plan. How much longer? 22 of 36. 14 pages left. No! God, please, no! Jeff smiled as he carved a slice of skin from his victims. He's having a ham sandwich. Can't handle the pain. Please make it stop. Please. Jeff laughed at his victims' cries. No one can hear you. He spat at the figure. You pathetic swine. Bill looked up, tears streaming down his cheeks. Please, sir. Stop. Jeff was taken aback. Sir? Never been called that before, he smiled. I like it. Sir Jeff. He laughed at his own egotism. Bill chuckled nervously. Now then, Jeff continued, I'll ask again. Where is Jane? Bill cried out as Jeff scraped the tip of the blade down his chest. I don't know, okay? She just asked me a bunch of questions about you and my son, then she took off to Keith's house. Jeff snarled. Fuck! He threw himself away from the man, dropping his knife as he did so. Fucking bitch! He spat at his feet, disgusting with himself. Bill tilted his head slightly, confused by the sudden turn in atmosphere. Do you know where she came from? He marched back to Bill, who responded by crawling away, his de-fingered hand scrabbling at the floor. De-fingered hands. Hi. I think she came from Randy's other friend's mom, Troy's mom. Jeff laughed manically. Manically, not maniacally, manically. Of course that bitch went all PI on me. He smiled at Bill, who smiled back. You've been of great service to me, Bill. It's almost a shame. He launched himself at the man, driving the blade hilt deep into his chest. Bill gurgled, and Jeff stood over him. As the last breaths escaped his mouth, Jeff crouched down, grabbed the handle. Grappled the handle. What? Not grabbed. Not gripped. Grappled the handle. Jeff the Killer got some Batman gear. Whispered, go to sleep, and wrenched the knife from his body. Bill went limp instantly, and with his last breath, he muttered, Asshole! Jeff chuckled to himself at the man's attempts to fight back. He drove the amusement from his mind and set out about his next task. Jane lay a sheet of A3 paper on Lou's coffee table. You know, people just have A3 paper lying around. On it she wrote the names of Jeff's known... Also, why did I specify? Just say a big piece of paper. On it she wrote the names of Jeff's known victims. Keith, Randy, Troy, Susan, Helen, Tamara... Brackets, Jeff's mom. David, Jeff's dad. Hey, where's Natalia? Where's the Russian lady that was written in as a joke character? But also to bring up the plot point that Jane spoke Russian for no reason. It's getting late, Jane muttered. Turn on the TV. He might have killed you. Wait, I just realized. The in brackets Jeff's mom and Jeff's dad, that's for the audience, because Lou would already know the names of his parents. Oh. Oh, that's peak fanfic right there. Oh, side note, there were author's notes that I cut out. Primarily because they added nothing, but also because they used the handle that I used on the website that this is published to. Lou nodded and grabbed the remote. He flicked through the channels until he got to the local news. The headline read, Father of murder victim found dead. That's Randy's dad, Lou confirmed, as the image of Bill appeared on screen. Wait. Alright. Jane nodded in agreement. She added his name to the list. What do all these murders have in common? Lou pondered this for a moment. The three boys are the ones who made him like he is, so that's a simple revenge deal. Jane circled their names and wrote revenge next to the ring. Our assistants got in the way. Jane circled them with the tag collateral damage. As for my mom and dad, they tried to stop him becoming what he is, so that could have been revenge too. Jane circled them and drew a line from them to the three boys. Randy's dad, that's a little strange. Jeff walked close to Miss Vanquez, grabbing her arm and pulling her down a side street. Maybe it was because he tried to stop Jeff killing Randy, Jane suggested. This is laid out really badly, but I get what I'm doing. I'm trying to do the dramatic, like, switching perspectives thing between, like, what Jeff's doing and what Jane's doing. But it just reads weirdly, in my opinion. Jeff held a knife to her throat and growled one word, Jane. The woman squealed. She came up to me asking about you. I have no idea why. She asked about your brother, too. Jeff smiled at her before slitting her throat. Hey! A man from the sidewalk! Yelled, and Jeff bolted away. He smiled. He knew exactly where she'd be. Could be. Or it... Lou was cut short by the TV. Breaking news. Mother of murder victim Troy Vanquez has been found in an alley just off. Jane stared wide-eyed at their TV. Oh no, not believing what she was hearing. Lou, she muttered. Louie's after me. He killed them for information. She circled their names and put information next to the ring. He's coming. Lou shook his head, not believing what he was hearing. What? Look, Jane said frantically. We need to get out of here. Wait, frantically? Is that how you spell frantically? Frantic-ally? That's dumb. We need to get out of here. Follow me. She stood up and motioned for Lou to do the same. They sprinted out to her car, Lou grabbing the sheet of paper as he left, and they both dove in. Jane hammered the gas pedal down, and the hatchback sped off into the distance. Oh, this is the original Megalovania. It's perfectly timed. Jeff heard the squealing of tires as he approached his brother's new... Wait, no, it's not perfectly timed. Remind me in a minute to put on Megalovania. Jeff heard the squealing of tires as he approached his brother's new house. Joyriders, he thought. Sorting out his hood, he jogged the remaining distance to the house. Licking his lips, he prepared to kick the door open. I've got you now, you sons of bitches. He launched a boot-clad foot towards the mahogany door. Fuck off. It doesn't matter what the door's made of. Breaking the hinges and allowing it to fall back, he leapt into the building, whipped his head around, and then kicked the wall. He had been too late. Fuck, he yelled. I had them. He growled before grabbing a side table and throwing it at the powered TV. Oh, Jeffy Weffy having a temper tantrum. Oh, Jeffy Weffy go for the TV. Go for the table at the TV. Oh, it's so angry. Oh, fuck. Lou gazed out the back window. Shit, we were this close. He held his two index fingers about an inch apart to getting shanked. I owe you one, Miss Elena. Call me Jane, she told him, eyes focused on the road. But yeah, you do. Lou brushed a strand of hair from his face. This motherfucker's always got strands of hair in his face. Jane's always giggling, Jeff's always drooling, and Lou's always got strands of hair in his face. Jane sighed, stamped on the brake, and turned to face him. I feel like that should be stomped. Jane stomped on the brake. Jane sighed, stomped on the... whatever. You really want to know? He nodded. Okay, Back when I was a teenager, I went into those woods. I could tell something was watching me, but I didn't know what. A couple of weeks ago, I got the same feeling. I remembered the woods, so I went there. Then I saw Slender Man. God, he was terrifying. But he told me things. To get free Robux, go to onlinerobloxfree.net.biz. Whispering without a mouth. He said, "They're all only humans, but me and you, we're different, and I believe every word of it." Fast forward a couple of weeks, and bam, Jeff appears, wanting me dead. And as he drove that knife into me, all I could think was, we're different. And I knew right then and there that Jeff wasn't human. Fuck. I'm beginning to wish I wasn't human. So I didn't have the neurons capable of firing and letting me understand what these words mean. So how are we meant to kill him? Jane laughed. He didn't know that I wasn't human either. Fuck. Oh my god. This reads so much like a fucking werewolf thing. Ah, woo. Ah, fucking woo. He didn't know that I wasn't human either, so I'm guessing that the power fades over time, or at least I'm hoping that's what happens. So he shouldn't be a problem. Lou shifted nervously in the chair. He'll be tough, and he won't go down without a fight, but for me, no, he won't be a problem. Jane smiled confidently before setting off again. So we go to a location, use one of us as bait, wait for him to appear, then we jump him. Sound good? Jane nodded. There's a warehouse on 46th Street that we could use. All we need to do is leave a trail leading to it and hope he follows us. Lou nodded back. Jane smiled internally, keeping stony-faced on the outside. He's mine now, she thought. Oh. Alright, so another layer of required explanation. Yeah, another layer of required explanation. Originally, this fanfic was meant to be the first in a trilogy. A trilogy that would focus on 3 creepypasta characters whose names started with J. It would be Jeff D. Killor, Jane D. Killor, and another character called Eyeless Jack. This is him. He's got a blue face, and he hasn't got any eyes. Can you guess why he's called Eyeless Jack? Bet you can't. No, it is. You're right. So anyway, this is the introduction of Jack to the trio of J characters. Panting, Nick sat down on a felled tree. Huh? Oh, but I just said Jack. It was dark, and he was no closer to getting out of the woods. He heard the whispering again. Jack! My name is not Jack, he yelled to the voice, clutching his head and kneeling to the ground. A tall figure stood over him, an arm outstretched. Sobbing quietly, Nick flopped backwards, giving up after a whole evening of running. He heard whispering, but couldn't quite work out what was being said. The figure grabbed his shirt, pulling him up to eye level. Jack. Suddenly, Nick felt something in his eyes. His vision began to darken and his eyes seemed to vanish, to disintegrate. Then, quick as a flash, his vision returned. The previously dark forest was bright like daylight. He smiled at the figure, who set him down gently. Pat, pat, pat. Jack. Yes, Nick replied, accepting his new identity. Jeff. Find him. Help him. Jack smiled. I will. The figure tipped his head slightly in appreciation before turning and disappearing into the tree line. Jack turned to the path and exited the forest. He returned home to pick up a knife and was greeted by his mother, who screamed at the sight of him. In passing the hall mirror, he noticed that his face had turned a deep shade of blue, his eyes replaced by black holes. His nose and mouth were indistinguishable. He smiled at his new appearance. His reflection failed to smile back. He grabbed a large knife from the kitchen, slit his mother's throat, instantly acquiring a taste for blood. He sat her body at the dining room table and lay her head forwards as though she was sleeping. He changed his trainers for hiking boots, then set off to find Jeff. Chapter 8. The Warehouse. By day it is a man, but by night it is a house. Fuck. Hello? Anybody home? Lou waved Jane forwards, and she stepped carefully into the empty structure. It's empty, Lou. Trust me. Jane chuckled slightly, as Lou glanced around nervously. A pipe fell from the ceiling, and Lou leapt backwards 1.5 feet. Oh, Jesus. Jane burst out laughing as he attempted to stand up straight and retain some dignity. He took a step forward and slipped in a puddle. Jane doubled over, crying with laughter. Gotta have some of that Three Stooges comedy in this fucking creepypasta fanfic. It's not that funny, Lou sat stony-faced in the puddle as Jane offered him a hand up. He accepted it gladly. Not to you, no, but it is to me. Jane smiled. Jane replied, her scarred smile spreading further across her face. She reached for a rock to throw at a window to create attention. She smiled as she found one about the same size as her palm. Gripping it tightly, she drew back her throwing arm, aimed at a particularly large window to the left of the entrance, and threw it. It arced through the air before ripping through the glass. The shatter echoed through the abandoned place. Spooky, Lou muttered sarcastically. Jane rolled her eyes and paced forwards, finally coming to a stop in the middle of the room. Okay, Jane announced after a few silent seconds. You'll stand here, she pointed to her feet, and I'll be over there, waiting for Jeff to try to kill you. Lou nodded understandingly as Jane paced over to the shadows. He wandered slowly towards the spot he had been ordered to stand in. So, why does Jeff want to kill you? Lou asked hesitantly. Jane sighed. I don't know, to be honest. Well, Lou rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Where do you work? You know where she works! I just forgot to give them an excuse. This is me making up for poor planning. I'm in the pharmaceutical? I'm in the pharmaceutical business. I sell poo gas blast. I go, and all the customers love it. I'm in the pharmaceutical biz. I almost did it again. I'm in the pharmaceutical business. Lou clicked his fingers. Snapped! He snapped his fingers, clicking his fingers. What is it fucking... You can't. You hear that? No, you can't, because you can't click your... That's probably why. Your company probably supplied the medicine and such that they used to help Jeff. What? That's such a... I knew that that was the reason I had given them. Here's the thing. In Jane, like I said, Jane's original story is incredibly lacking in any kind of detail. This was my attempt to give an excuse as to why Jeff would kill her. Such a stupid fucking reason. Excuse me. Jane laughed. Who would have thought my job would get me killed? Lou laughed too. Jane shushed him suddenly as the roof started to drip. Rain? Lou asked. Jane glanced at the still open door. The weather was still clear. This music is loud as balls. Weather's still clear. No. Someone's poured something on the roof. Jane clicked her tongue as she pondered this idea. With a start, she realized who it would have been. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Jeff. Chapter 9. Showdown. Jeff sprinted through the doorway unnoticed before grabbing Lou around the neck from behind. He laughed at Lou's attempts to wriggle free. Oh, brother, I've missed you, Jeff growled cheerfully. Oh, we have found a different kind of growling. Shaolin Showdown? If only. Get off me, you sick bastard, Lou spat back. Jeff laughed again. He withdrew a knife from his belt. He held it to Lou's neck. Oh, brother, he said again. I've been waiting for this moment. Jane pulled up her shooting arm and aimed the small 9mm pistol at Jeff. As she pulled the trigger, someone dived onto her arm. Say dove. Someone dove onto her arm, you fucking cretin. Throwing a punch at her nose as they did so. Jane span around, flinging the figure off. Jack landed on his feet before tilting his head at Jane. He smiled to himself before pouncing on her. She fought back against the blue-faced man. It's the Blue Man Group! But he was stronger. He slammed a fist across her face, dazing her. He drew his knife from his pocket. Just keeping a knife in his pocket. Raised it into the air, ready to strike down. Jane snapped back into action. Oops, there goes Graction. Whipping her gun hand back up and towards Jack. She pulled the trigger, the bullet pushing Jack back as it tore through his chest. That doesn't happen. Bullets don't push you back. Maybe a shotgun blast might do so. But generally speaking, bullets kind of just go through. They don't, like, snag on you and tear you backwards. Boo-ba-doo-ba-doo. He stumbled backwards as she got up panting. He looked down at the bullet hole, which was already closing. Jane looked confusedly at him as Jack stared at the now fully healed hole. Jane fired another shot. It pushed him backwards slightly, but as the first did, it healed in a matter of seconds. Just kill the bitch so we can get out of here, Jeff screamed. Jack nodded and charged at Jane, who emptied the rest of her clip. It's not a clip, it's a magazine. It's not a clip, it's a... She tossed the empty gun aside and pulled out her own tiny knife. He swung at her blindly, which she easily parried away. Jesus, she on that Resident Evil 4 shit. He regained his stance and launched a series of quick jabs with the knife, each of which Jane deflected. She kneed him in the groin, forcing him to double over. She smiled at his obvious pain as he silently cursed himself for being male. What a line. What a fucking line. What a sick little it's like a little funny little yoke right there. Oh, he gets hit in the balls and it hurt him. Not shot, right? It's over, Jeff, Lou shouted. Jeff applied more pressure to his neck. Jane picked up the pistol and reloaded the magazine. I called it a magazine there. Why didn't I call it a magazine the first time? She smiled at Jeff, who didn't smile back. It's over, she muttered. She shot around into Jeff's leg, forcing him to release Lou and inspect the wound. It wasn't healing as quickly as before. Jeff threw the pistol at Lou. Why? You idiot. Jeff saw the gun sailing through the air and reached for it. He grabbed it and fired at the roof. The petrol ignited suddenly, and soon the whole building was ablaze. You should be dead, he screamed at Jane. Jane smiled cruelly. No, I'm not. That's not how words work. You should be dead. No, I'm not. My only explanation is that at some point, you should be dead was you're supposed to be dead. And then Jane saying, no, I'm not, makes a bit more sense. You should be dead. No, I'm not. Jeff smiled at her before casually raising the gun at Lou and pulling the trigger. His head snapped backwards as his body flew to the floor. Blood sprayed from the wound. No! Jeff screamed. She charged at Jeff, plunging the knife into his leg. She reached down to his knife and plunged it in deep into his abdomen. She tore the gun from his hand and shot 3 bullets into his chest. He laughed as the wounds healed slowly. Jeff tore the knives from his body before beckoning for Jack to leave. The two of them sprinted out of the doorway, which collapsed after them. Jane picked up Lou's lifeless body and threw it over her shoulder. She looked for an exit. A section of wall had broken away and was just big enough for her to fit through. She ran towards it, smoke clouding her vision. As she got closer to the hole, she heard the sirens. Time to play the frightened little girl, she thought. What a sentence. She clambered awkwardly out of the gap and into the arms of a fireman. Oof, swoon. She sobbed loudly into Lou's body, the only part of the act she wouldn't have to fake. Aw, she's sad. Chapter 10, The Funeral. Girlie, that is a condemned building. What in the name of fuck were you doing in there? The mustached police officer... Pray tell, Google. Oh, fucking Americanizations. I thought this was somebody farting. Nice. Cool. Thanks, Luigi. The mustache police officer growled at her, but handed her a glass of water first. She sniffled. Oh god, this is how you can tell this is written by a teenager. Well, me and my boyfriend needed a place to make out. Your house, perhaps? You dipshit. And the door was open, so we went in. Next thing we know, the building's on fire, and she sniffed loudly. This man came in and he shot Lou. She sobbed at the memory. The cop rested a sympathetic hand on her shoulder. She dabbed her eyes. Oh, dab! Oh, dab! Yeah, 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 yeah. Before grabbing another one from the box. Did you see the man that shot your boyfriend? He asked quietly. She nodded. Can I have a pen and a pad of paper to draw him? The officer nodded and took the items from his briefcase. You know, the briefcase that police officers carry around. She drew Jeff carefully, using the light of the still-burning fire to see. When she was finished, she handed the paper back to the man. His eyes widened as he realized who had been there. He called his deputy over to look at the drawing before exchanging hushed words with him. Finally, he turned to Jane. Girlie, go home. I can't do that voice. It hurts my throat too bad. We'll bury your boyfriend. I'll write you where his grave is. What's his name? Dr. Lou Evans, she murmured. The officer wrote it down. He smiled at her, then called an officer over. Drive this girl home, he ordered. Jane followed the officer to his car, who opened the back door for her. Back at home, Jane flicked on the TV and was unsurprised to see the fire being reported. She pulled a bottle of vodka out of the fridge and span the lid off. Again. She tipped her head back, the liquid gushing down her throat. She pulled the bottle from her mouth to cough before throwing up into the kitchen sink. Fuck yeah. That's the one realistic part about drinking that I remember. About drinking vodka. Throwing up in the kitchen sink after trying to neck it straight. She smiled at her reflection in the window before draining some more spirit into her body. When she woke up, it was morning. There was a small letter on the floor next to her door. She picked it up, clutching her head as she bent down, silently vowing to never drink again. She ripped open the envelope and read, Dear Miss Eleanor, from all of us at the station, we are sorry for the loss of your Lou Evans. The funeral is at 1350 at the Memorial Crematorium on Wednesday. You have also been signed up for the Witness Protection Program. Oh boy, I won! An officer should be around after the funeral to go through the detail. Just one detail. Again, our condolences, Officer Harper. It was signed with a fancy signature and Jane smiled at the gesture. Wednesday. Jane stood at the foot of Lou's grave, crying silently into a small handkerchief. The minister gave a small speech about Lou and how he was taken before his time, causing Jane to whisper "no shit" under her breath. Rain began to gently fall from the sky, softening the ground beneath Jane's feet. The service ended, and all the participants ebbed away, apart from Jane. She stooped down and placed a small wreath of flowers onto the coffin. She smiled sadly at her loss as it was lowered into the ground. She paced away to a taxi. Where to, sweetheart? Jeff growled from the driver's seat. Are you ready? Chapter 11. The Fight. Jane snapped her head up to look at Jeff, who was... Oh no, wrong version! Wrong version of Megalovania. Fuck, let me do that again. Chapter 11. The Fight. Jane snapped her head up to look at Jeff, who was currently smiling at her from the front seat. You, Jane growled as Jeff turned to face the road and started driving. He laughed maniacally. Yes, he said dramatically, 'tis I, Sir Jeff the Murderous. He broke down into a fit of laughter. Smacking his hands against the steering wheel, cars dodged out of the way of the taxis. They sped down the street. You fucker! Jane screamed, launching herself at Jeff. She hit the wheel and span it round. The car did a spin before getting rammed by an oncoming truck, flipping it through the air. Jane was thrown against the roof as it pirouetted over the lorry. It hit the ground, now a metal ball of fire, and the two occupants crawled out. Jeff raised a pistol to Jane from the other side of the car, but couldn't maintain a steady aim. Jane tore a section of the broken door away and held it in a defensive position. The two locked gazes, unmoving and silent. Then Jane broke the spell, diving over the wreck and lunging at Jeff. He dodged it. Just. He span away and fired a round off at the woman. She leapt up as the bullet skimmed her head. She threw the makeshift dagger at Jeff as though it was a spear. It hit him in the shooting shoulder, and he was forced to regain his composure. He tore it out of his body and threw it to the ground, blood pouring from his wound. Jane dove at him again and tackled him to the ground. She pulled the knife from her belt and began stabbing at Jeff. Where are they getting all these knives from? The attacks proved fruitless, however, as Jane ripped his own knife from its holster and parried each jab. Their buttholes. Oh yeah, the good old prison wallet. He kicked her off of him and began his counterattack. Jane deflected each bit as easily as Jeff had. The wailing of police sirens pricked their ears up, but the two didn't falter. As it grew louder, the two attacked each other with more and more ferocity. Jane stabbed downwards, catching Jeff's shirt and tearing it away. She was briefly distracted by his strong physique, allowing Jeff to jump in the air and hammer his knife down. She backflipped away gracefully. I hate the person that wrote this. I'm not that person anymore. But I hate the person that wrote this. Fuck. Jeff spat as a cop car came speeding round the corner, followed by two others in a riot van. Jane looked past Jeff at the same amount of force. Jeff stabbed at Jane, catching her in the bicep before sprinting off towards a ladder on the side of a building. Jane followed and the two scrambled up the ladder. Once at the top, Jeff ran along the roof of the building with Jane not far behind. A police chopper hovered close to the block, and the marksman inside of it leveled his rifle at Jeff. Jeff reached the edge of the building and leapt to the one directly opposite. Jane followed Sweet, not Suit, Sweet, and the chopper flew overhead, reaching the other end and waiting. Jeff saw this and ran straight for it. Open fire, the pilot yelled to the officer, who obliged. Bullets tore at the ground close to Jeff, but none hit him. He reached the edge of the roof and leapt at the helicopter. Clinging to the landing gear, he stabbed the marksman in the foot before wrenching him from the vehicle. He pulled himself up and Jane leapt for him. She grabbed the same spot he had and wasted no time in pulling herself up. She pulled Jeff away from the pilot and began stabbing at him. The helicopter span around as the pilot attempted to regain stability, now flying over a busy freeway. The heli flew closer and closer to the ground, the rotor clipping the roofs of cars. It pulled up for a second before crashing down, throwing Jane and Jeff out. The chassis caught fire and detonated, destroying cars in the immediate area. Hey, remember when this was a Creepypasta fanfic? And fuck, I've lost my place. Jane resumed her assault on Jeff, who parried each shot. What? Though getting closer and though slower and slower each time, finally Jane managed to open up a gash on his chest. Jeff howled in agony. Fuck, this is an anthrofic. Ugh. Where is it? Crashing to the ground, clutching his wound, Jeff kneed him in the face, breaking his nose. She stamped on his wound, digging her heel in. He screamed louder, which served to only urge Jane on. She grinned at the obvious agony he was in. Please, please, stop! He begged her, tears forming in her eyes. In his eyes, even. Jane lowered herself to Jeff's face. She pecked him on the cheek. I fucking hate myself. Sweetheart, she whispered, mimicking him. This is for Lou. She tore open his wound and jabbed the knife into his body, just missing his heart. Jeff screamed, unable to fall unconscious. He pulled the knife from his body and threw it aside. He lay on the road, healing himself slowly. Apparently, Slender Man gives you Wolverine powers. I guess. Jane stood at his feet, watching, smiling. A swarm of helicopters appear and their occupants pilot the bridge. Jane spat on the floor before picking up Jeff and jumping to a lower freeway. She hit the ground with a roll, dropping Jeff as she did so. He groaned as he smacked against the ground. His wound had healed most of the way now, and he threw a punch at Jane. It connected with her head, and she stumbled backwards. She regained balance and threw one back. The two brawled for a few minutes before Jane span around and launched an explosive back kick at the back. Explosive back kick at Jeff. That's a fighting game move. Winding him briefly. She pounced at him and wrapped her hands around his neck. He punched her stomach, throwing her off of him. 4 police cars sped down the road and Jeff ran for them. Why? He's a dog chasing cars. They span to a stop, and Jeff slid over the hood and battered the base of his palm into a cop's nose, killing him instantly. That is a thing that you can do, actually. If you do... I don't know why I'm describing this. If you hit somebody's nose with enough force and at the right angle, it'll send the bone inside the nose, like, into their brain, or something like that. Which I guess I had just learned when I wrote this. He tore the door open and sped away. Jane ran over to the cars. She grabbed one of the shotguns from the car and fired 3 shots at the cops before taking her own vehicle and speeding after him. She threw the shotgun onto the back seat and grabbed a small machine gun from the seat next to her. She rolled her window down and drew level with Jeff's car. He looked at her, terrified, as she pointed the barrel at Jeff and tugged the trigger. The shots tore at the car, sending it spinning off the road. She dove from her vehicle and sprinted over to Jeff's. She pulled him from the car and threw him onto the road. He launched a kick from his position, knocking the gun from Jane's hand. A small army of cop cars came charging down the road, each firing at the 2 killers. Oh. They formed a circle around the two of them, and Jane ran over to Jeff's wrecked car, pulling a sawn-off shotgun from the boot. Jeff grabbed the machine gun from the floor and was waving it at the cops. Nobody fucking move! Jeff screamed at the cops. Jane pumped the shotgun no, okay, you can have a sawn-off pump shotgun. Stay the fuck back, Jeff yelled at a cop who attempted to reason with him. Stay the fuck back and your kids will still have a father. Jesus. Jane raised the shotgun to the back of Jeff's head. Go to sleep, she muttered before pulling the trigger. The shot ripped through Jeff's head, sending his body flying to the ground. She threw the gun down and raised her hands to her head. She had won. The wind is battering against his bedroom window. He's lying, curled up into a ball, and he's scared of the outside world. And so he should be. There is so much out there that could hurt him. So much! It almost makes me sad, the fact that this small, unassuming boy isn't going to live his life because the outside world is about to become his everything. 3 years later. Timmy, your light better be out. He figured it was probably better if he didn't answer. It would make him seem asleep. His window creaked and drops of rain speckled his side table. He got up and closed it, making sure it was locked. He drew his curtain slowly as he heard footsteps behind him. He assumed it was his dad going to bed. He replaced himself in his bed and attempted to drift off. "Hey there, kiddo." Jeff stood over him, knife in hand. "Time to go to sleep," he said with a demonic smile. Suddenly, he hit the ground. He growled at his attacker and leapt out the window, smashing through it. Jane stood up and brushed Timmy's head soothingly. "Don't go to sleep. You won't wake up." And with that, she followed Jeff out of the window. The end. That was a wild ride. Sure was. Honestly, I remember it being worse. I'm gonna level with you. That could have been a lot worse. Uh, yeah, no, that could have, that could have been a lot worse. Well, that was something. That was Halloween! That was October. That was the spookiest month that we will ever see. And it was a very good month. I enjoyed streaming a lot this month. But unfortunately, all things must come to an end. I'm transforming! I'm normal again. I can't read what you said. I'm trying to find a picture. Give me a sec. I'm sorry. Not ready for Christmas? Oh, fucking Christmas isn't. You've got ages. It's a whole month. Anyway. Yeah, that was Halloween. I enjoyed this month streaming. I enjoyed this stream. This stream was fun. It was stupid and cringe, but it was fun. Tomorrow, as promised, we will be immediately going in to Dark Souls 2, which I'm looking forward to. And yeah, other than that, I can't really think of anything to say. Thank you to everyone who came and watched tonight. Yeah. Thanks. So, as always, my name is V for Valentine's, and I wish you all a lovely, spooky, creepy rest of your Halloween evening. Goo baba. Or should I say boo baba? Fuck you.